Hello, welcome to another video from EarnPED.com. I'm StevieB, happy to have you all with us today. So this is something I don't normally do. I actually pulled a video that I just published like yesterday or day before. I pulled it before it got more hits because I didn't want people seeing it. I wanted to get it down and get the corrected version put up. I screwed up. I'm just going to throw that out there. I screwed up. I've done this a billion times and got it right. And the one time I was recording it for you guys, I screwed it up royally. So the other day, we looked at, if you're looking at your professional level by hitting P, and you're looking at your points by hitting K, how do we figure out if we increase our skill points, either from eating a implant chip or from a mission reward or a codex reward? How does that translate into growth in our actual profession? Because this is the important part. This is our actual level, quote unquote, right? So I walked everybody through the math, and again, these are calculations I've done a billion times, never had a problem with them, always been spot on, down to being able to take a 30-PED implant and chip out skills down to literally the peck, gotten it right every single time. And apparently when I made it for the video, somehow, some way, I screwed the math up. Now, I will admit, the method that I used, it was a long, convoluted, roundabout way to do it. There's a much easier way to do it. I was trying to explain it in depth, and I should have just gone with simpler is better. I was banking on the factor that a lot of people have different experience levels with mathematics. A lot of people have different comfort levels with mathematics. So I was trying to give you guys like the down and dirty way to do it. In doing that, I screwed it up pretty royally. So first of all, let's start with the basics. Skill points are what we get when we're out hunting, when we're out crafting, when we're out mining. And if we notice, skills are calculated in TT value, not point value. That's because every point is worth more than the point before it, less than the point after it. So let's imagine we have two avatars. One that is brand new, just created, has 0 points in any skill, and another that is an Uber that has 10,000 skill points of a particular skill. Now, both of them have the exact same 10-PED TT skill chip that they bought off auction. The new player eats that skill chip. It's going to take them to just shy of 1,900 skill points, what we see when we hit K. These right here that we're looking at. However, that Uber player that has 10,000 points, they're only going to go to 10,009, because that 9 points for the Uber player is the same TT value as that almost 1,900 points for the new player. So the question that we have is, how does this affect our profession levels, since almost everything in game is based on profession levels, not off skill points? Well, for the Uber player, obviously their professions are going to grow very little, if at all, versus that new player is going to skip many levels. So my friend Dog has been kind enough to give me the easier way to do it. I have no idea how I screwed the calculation up that bad, and I sincerely apologize, because like I said, I've done this calculation a bazillion times. Never had a problem with it. It's always been spot on until today, until the one time I actually make a video and publish it. So there are a couple things we need to know. I'll actually get Dog's message out here. He said, "You mathed wrong. Please fix video." And he's right. So what you need is this right here. So for example, if we look at my alertness, before I made that video, I had 2,607 points of alertness. I also had 7,054 points of evade. Now that's before getting a reward. The reward I was looking at is if I used a codex reward worth 7.81 PED, what would be the difference in my profession growth if I chose evade skills versus alertness skills? Now, the reason I wanted to look at that is because alertness is only a 5% contribution to the evader profession. Evade skill is a 25% contribution to the evade profession. So I got online and I used the skill calculator for Entropia. I just went to the calculate tab, and where it said initial skill size, I put in my current skills that I had for both evade down here. This one's the evade calculation, and alertness, which this is the alertness calculation. So I found out that if I had 2,607 points of alertness, and I picked a 7.81 PED alertness reward, it would take me to a grand total of 2,985 points of alertness. If I started with 7,054 points of evade, and I picked the 7.81 PED reward for evade, then it would take me to 7,071 points of evade. So, that was the first step. Now, we take the number that I would have after taking the reward, and we subtract from that the number of skill points I had at the beginning before the reward to find out what the difference is in those two. Then, it's a very simple calculation. I take the difference and I multiply it by the amount that that particular skill contributes to the profession I'm looking at. So in this case, alertness, I would have gained 378 points. It is a 5% contribution to the evade profession. Doing that right there, 378 multiplied by 0.05 gives me 18.9. So 18.9 divided by 100 equals 0.189% evade profession level increase if I choose alertness. For the evade calculation, same thing. My skills before, my skills should I choose that particular reward, the difference is 17. So 17 multiplied by what is the contribution that evade skill has for the evader profession, it's 25%, so 0.25 equals 4.25. 4.25 divided by 100 would mean that should I choose the evade skill, my evader profession would only increase by 0.0425%. So 4/100ths of a level. So I can gain 18, almost 19/100ths of a level by going with alertness, even though it has a lower contribution, because I'm getting a much larger amount of the skill, versus if I went with the evade skill, even though it's a 25% contribution, I would only be growing my skill by 4/100ths of a level, because gaining that skill from the skill points I already have is only going to get me a very small number of points, even though it's a larger overall contribution percentage-wise. Now, to find these contributions right here, we can use things like the wiki, because if we go to wiki and we just Google like Entropia Universe evader skill or evader profession, it will tell us what each of the skills and each of the attributes contributes as far as the percentage contribution. So first of all, let me thank Gdog for pointing this out, because again, this is a calculation I've done so many times. I don't see how I possibly screwed it up, but looking at the way he did the calculation versus the way I did the calculation, this is just the much easier way to do it. This takes all of a couple of seconds. All I need to know is my beginning skill level, use the calculator to figure out if I gain a certain TT value of points, what will my new points be, new points minus old points, difference in those two numbers, take that difference, multiply that by whatever the contribution to the profession is, then take my result there, divide it by 100, and that tells me how much my profession is going to increase. Now, to figure out which one of us was right on the fly, I just did something very simple. I just went to Codex and I actually claimed the reward for alertness, since obviously it was going to get me further. And in doing so, if we pull my professions back up, we will see that if I hover over evader, I'm at level 50.1875. So almost exactly what Dog's calculation came out to. Now, that said, before I claimed the reward, I think my evader level was 49.93 or 49.94. I was almost to 50. So his calculation is absolutely spot on. That's how I figured out which one of us was right on the fly. My calculation somehow showed that if I chose alertness, it would take me to 50.3. And if I chose evader, it would take me to 50.02. However, the correct calculation, the one that Dog just provided, is that by choosing alertness, it took me to 15.18, and had I chosen evade instead, it would have only taken me to 50.04. So again, my sincerest apologies, because I have done that calculation literally a trillion times. I have used it on implants whenever I was chipping out, down to the pec, where if I had gotten the calculation wrong, I would have broke the implant. So how I screwed it up, I don't know. After a while, I will go back and look at the video and see where I screwed the math up, because I'm sure it'll be obvious once I look at the video. But like I said, I wanted to pull that video down and get this one up as soon as possible, because I didn't want to get any more clicks than it already had. And I wanted you guys to know the correct way to do it. Plus, Dog's version is just so much simpler than my convoluted way to do it. And neither of them are necessarily quote-unquote the correct way mathematically, like if you were going to write a thesis paper to actually write out the formula. However, I love Gdog's method so much more just because it's so simple. It's like all of 5 seconds to calculate this out. The only thing you need is your current skill level, the size of the reward that you're going to be getting, throw that into the online chip calculator to figure out what your end result would be, and then bam, plug everything in just as you see here, and you're good to go. So this is not only an easier way to do it, which again, I'm always smarter, not harder. Easier is always better. But accuracy is kind of big on something like this, and I can't believe I screwed it up that bad. In fact, I actually sent him a message back right before I started this. Same calculation, but backwards. You're right. I effed it up somehow. Your calculation is faster and much less BS. I've done the calculation that way 1,000 times and got it right, so I effed something up somewhere. I pulled the video entirely. I'll just reshoot it after I figure it out. I didn't even wait to figure it out. I just pulled it that way it wouldn't get more hits. So if you're trying to figure out which skill to get, this is probably the easiest formula I've ever seen for figuring out how your skills are going to impact your profession levels. And this is very, very important, especially when you're dealing with something like codecs, because when you're starting off as a new player, it's one thing. But as you go, a lot of times your skills get way out of whack. Most people would just always pick evade skill because they know it's a 25% contribution and alertness is only a 5% contribution. But look how out of whack my skill points are. Evade, I've got over 7,000 skill points. Alertness, I only had 2,600. Now, neither of those are a hidden skill that you have to unlock. Alertness is unlocked just like evade from the get, from day one in Entropia. So what this also tells me is you just naturally gain alertness at a much, 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 much slower rate than you will naturally gain evade. So I would almost bet if we looked at the vast majority of players in-game who have been playing for a significant amount of time, and we looked, what we would see is their alertness skills are far, far, far below that of their evade skills, which means that there might be quite a few people out there who could actually benefit from taking the alertness reward instead of the evade reward. Now, why didn't I do this for something like combat reflexes or athletics or courage? Because my skill points were all so close to where my evade points were that I really didn't even need to. It was just too close. Doing the math was almost pointless. In fact, if we look, come on, there we go. There we are. Evade 7,054, athletics 7,014, courage 6,995, combat reflexes 6,369. So serendipity 6,146. So clearly they were all pretty well grouped together. So it really didn't make sense to run a bajillion calculations when it would have been fairly obvious the one with the bigger contribution was probably the better choice. However, given the vast difference between my very low alertness and my very high evade, it made sense to do the calculation, and as you can see, it gained me almost 15% of a level by going with the alertness reward, which would not have intuitively been the reward that you would have thought should have been picked. So again, guys, I want to sincerely apologize. If you did see the previous video, I am so sorry because I cannot believe I screwed it up that badly the one time I was recording, the one time I was trying to put it out there to help you guys. But this also goes to prove a point of mine. I'm just a guy with a YouTube channel, and most of the time I get it right. Every now and then I don't. Sometimes I screw up because I don't know something or because something changes in game, and some things I just screw up because that's the nature of being human. There are going to be times where you just screw something up and you can't help it, and it never fails. You're going to screw it up at the worst possible time. In my case, I would have been more than fine screwing it up when I was using an implant because that would have just cost me money. I would have broke the implant, that would have been that. But no, I had to screw it up the one time I was recording, the one time I was putting it out there to try and help you guys, which, not okay. So I did take down the other video. I am putting this one up right away. And guys, again, my sincerest apologies, but believe it or not, I'm human too. So I'm going to leave it right there for today. Big thanks to Gdog for catching it and for throwing me a message so quickly in game, and also for just giving us a much faster, easier way to do the calculation. So guys, I'm going to leave it there for today for EarnPED.com. I've been StevieB, sip, sip, smack, smack. You all know the rest. I'll see y'all later this week. Take care, guys.